Would you like to know how to block print in a quick, easy and child user fashion? These prints of peacock's feathers were created using a quick print technique. This video explores how to quick print from observation. It entails attentive looking and an understanding of negative shape and sequencing. This is a lovely activity to do with children of primary school age. It can be used to create cards, posters or prints. The materials required for this project are inks of your choosing, a brayer or ink roller, and an impermeable flat sheet to roll out the ink. You will also require any paper type and colour of your choosing. Part of the fun of quick printing is discovering different finishing ink printing effects through exploring different inks on different kinds and types of paper. For the actual quick printing, we will need a sheet of styrofoam as well as a simple pen. Before we engage in any kind of printmaking activity, the first activity entails drawing the peacock's feather from observation. This is so that we can get used to the shape and form of the feather itself. However, you can choose whatever theme or pattern that you wish. The visual element explored in this exercise is mainly the dot and the line, and how each of these in turn can create shape through the intersection of line, pattern and rhythm or texture through the repetition of line or dots, or indeed the illusion of three-dimensional form. In the first exercise, we draw the peacock's feather from observation using charcoal on paper. The curriculum refers to this starting point as observation and curiosity. The one disadvantage of using styrofoam quick print sheet for block printmaking is that any incised mark cannot be undone, and so drawing the object from observation beforehand enables us to get to know its shape and form. Through observational drawing, we get to know its size, shape, and its very construction. Attentive looking allows us to see the detail otherwise gone unnoticed. In this video clip, I am drawing the feather in a slightly magnified fashion. Drawing an object bigger than it actually is makes it easier to include the details. As the lines of the feather are much thinner than the thickness of the charcoal stick, it makes sense to draw it in a slightly magnified fashion. Drawing at large scale may make us appreciate the tiniest detail more. Using charcoal as opposed to coloured pencils prevents us from being distracted by colour. We want to see the feather in terms of its line construction only. I chose charcoal very deliberately as opposed to pencil, so that I couldn't fall into the trap of using the eraser to wipe out every bad line. Leaving the bad lines enables us to draw a good line the second time. Often a bad line disappears or becomes a good line when we progress the drawing. If we fall into the trap of erasing every perceived mistake, we tend to repeat them. Leave them there, learn from them, use them to create better lines, and maybe towards the end erase some of them if you feel they distract from the work using a putty rubber, which is kinder to paper. When finished this activity, afford children the opportunity to look at and talk about their drawing in relation to line and the absence of colour. Elicit from them the basic construction of the feather and draw attention to the different kinds of lines. These lines are not straight, each one is quite unique. Notice where they start and where they finish. Draw attention to the thickness or thinness of each line, and notice with them where they are tightly packed together. Observe with them how some are vertical and others are diagonal. In the second video clip, I demonstrate how to incise into the quick print. This time I transfer what I see combined with what I know to be there in terms of the line and form from my previous observational drawing experience. You could use a variety of pointed or sharp implements to incise into the styrofoam sheet. With children of primary school age, I tend to use pens mainly. They are used to this tool for drawing and writing after all. This time I have opted to incise the drawing the same size as the actual peacock's feather. I cut the sheet very easily to suit the dimensions of the feather. Do not take any creative decision for granted with children. Elicit or explain options from children as you demonstrate the technique. Importantly, from a pedagogical perspective, ensure that you demonstrate this technique as opposed to complete the task. Incising into the styrofoam is a little more difficult than drawing. The advantage of using a pen is that you see the lines as you draw. The deeper you incise into the sheet, the wider the resultant negative line will be in the finished print. I encourage children to depict any line in the direction of the feather's growth. By doing this, the tail end of any line drawing will usually be thinner. The skills required are similar to those used for observational drawing. Attentive looking is key. The more time you spend looking at the feather, the more accurate your feather will be. Try not to fall into the trap of drawing lines which you know are figured to be there only. This results in a type of regression to schematic drawing as opposed to drawing from observation. Another key advantage of this activity is the fact that you're not restricted by time. You can afford to take your time. The media will not dry out. One way of ensuring that you draw from observation as opposed to what you know to be there is to turn the feather upside down and draw what you see. Your mind no longer sees it for what it is, but rather for how it is constructed. In this video clip I demonstrate the inking process. I simply squeeze a little ink of my choosing onto the Perspex sheet, and using a brayer I roll out the ink. The brayer has a little edge or ledge, so when it is placed on the table it doesn't leave any residue or mess. In this video I've decided to explore colour mixing possibilities resulting from available inks at the time: blue, orange and yellow. I've kept a brayer for each colour initially, but there are no hard and fast rules regarding colour exploration. Working from light to dark works best in that it is easier to go darker afterwards in shade as opposed to trying to create a lighter tint. In this video clip, I demonstrate how you might go about inking your block for inking. I decided initially to use a paintbrush for detail, but then I realised I would be better off to work in the backdrop first and use a roller instead. I decided to go eventually with warm tones in the backdrop and then add contrasting cool dark blues for contrast and tonal variation. This part of the activity is very open-ended in terms of creative decision making. You could decide to recreate the exact colours of the peacock's feather that you see. Prints usually have limited colours from a budgetary and visual impact perspective. The use of limited colour or using a specific colour in a limited fashion can have a very striking effect on the viewer. Once you have inked the styrofoam sheet, you can obtain a print from it on any kind of paper or colour of your choosing. Bear in mind that the paper colour will factor into your final print. I opted in this case for simple white cartridge paper. The paper absorbs the print quite well. I decided to create another print without re-inking. I decided this because I wanted to create a triptych panel comprised of prints and including the actual block itself. The second print, of course, will be slightly lighter, but it will have the identical tonal composition as the first. If I chose a monochrome backdrop of one colour only, this consideration would not apply, as each print would be pretty much the same if you re-inked with the same colour. The key thing with the printmaking stage is a steady hand. Ensure that when you rest the block on the sheet of paper that you refrain from moving it, otherwise the resultant print will be blurred. You can sneak a peek by lifting up an edge to see how well the ink has taken. You may discover that you need to apply greater pressure along the edges with the palm of your hand to ensure a more crisp and even print. I hope you enjoyed the quick printing technique demonstration and that you've learned something about drawing from observation and quick printing from observation as well. Here we have on display the final piece of work which combines the charcoal drawing with the quick prints. I've displayed it on very simple black paper then, which I think is quite effective. Well, thank you for watching, and your task entails creating your own quick print as demonstrated using a small object for inspiration. You can cut the styrofoam sheet to whatever size you like. You can decide to explore abstract pattern making if you wish, as opposed to incising or drawing from observation. Upload a digital photograph of your finished print and write no more than 100 words about what you liked, found challenging or disliked about the creative process. What am I looking for in relation to a good print? I'm looking for a crisp, clean and tidy print, an awareness of the relationship between line and shape, pattern and the illusion of texture, and I'm also looking for a recognition of spatial organisation and some innovative use of limited colour. The very best of luck. Take care.